And welcome back to Jeff Kunange Live here at Citizen Television 1. The topic tonight is about governance, especially as concerning Africa. The next phase, folks, from here on out. What's it going to be like in the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years in Africa? Well, there's an organization called the Africa School of Governance that's taking the lead. That's right. They want to say, you know what? If you want to become a part of the future of this continent, you may want to pass by here. And Professor Kingsley Moghalu is the president of the ASG, based out of Kigali in Rwanda. And I'm telling you, folks, listen to the man. Listen, you may just want to apply. In fact, my own sister just sent me a message saying, I want to apply.
Great.
She just said it just now.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That's what we want. We want great young professionals to apply.
Yeah.
It's competitive. Be confident.
Yeah.
You know, and you have a chance. You cannot win a lottery if you don't buy the ticket.
And like you said, even if you don't have the money.
Exactly. There are scholarships. Yes, for those who deserve it. But first you must apply.
Correct.
Then you must be admitted.
Correct.
Then you can apply for scholarship if you feel you need it. Yeah.
Look, by the way, the commander of the AFRICOM, right?
AFRICOM, yes.
Yes, his name was Michael Langley.
Yes.
He made a statement the other day saying that Ibrahim Traore he has concerns about his method of ruling. That's what he said. What do we do?
Well, I mean, he's entitled to his opinion. You know, the Burkina Faso people, the Burkinabes, are entitled to their own view of who leads them and who governs them. The real question for Africa is not what people who are not Africans think about us. It's more about what we think about ourselves. If we believe that we are God's children too, entitled to a place under the sun, we will think right, act right, and deliver good governance and prosperity for our people. It doesn't matter what Langley thinks. What matters is what the leaders of Africa do, and whether they have the capacity to achieve prosperity and the welfare of their people. And that's what Africans should hold their leaders accountable to, in my view.
So let me ask you this, Prof.
Absolutely.
It seems to be there's a new world order.
Oh, absolutely.
Trump 2.0
yes.
is in the White House.
Exactly.
The other day, you must have watched, we all did, Cyril Ramaphosa,
yes.
South African president, visiting the Oval Office. And he was almost ambushed by Trump.
Yes.
You know, thank God he kept his cool, because I don't know how many would have kept his cool. Trump is saying, okay, would you dim the lights? There's a white genocide going on in Africa. I mean,
well, you know, Ramaphosa is a cool cat, as we say. But yes, there is a new world order. But we need to understand what this new world order is and why it matters for Africa. You see, Trump dismantled the USAID.
Yeah.
Actually, that's one of the best things that happened to Africa. Oh, yes.
Because of dependence?
Because of dependence. If you are dependent on the generosity of strangers, you can never have the incentive to build your own progress. You will keep holding out a begging bowl. Look at our healthcare systems in Africa. Most of them were being funded by foreign aid. But healthcare is one of the primary responsibilities that every government owes to its people. And this is being provided by strangers who are funding mostly, specific diseases, not building health systems. Come to Rwanda, for example. You will see the Santé Mutuelle. You will see how they've built their own health system based on health insurance, 80, 90% access to healthcare for all the citizens. That is governance in action. And it's not something, even though in the beginning, after the genocide against the Tutsi in 1994, they received quite a lot of foreign aid, but eventually they broke away from it. They always had their own plan. This is what Africans should do. 10 years ago, 12 years ago, I wrote a book, Imagine Africa, How the Global Economy's Last Frontier Can Prosper and Matter. In that book, I broke down the secret of prosperity and transformation for this continent. But, sometimes people say, If you want to hide something from an African,
put it in a book.
Put it in a book. You know, so whereas other people write in the West and in Asia, those books are bestsellers. The leaders read the books and use the ideas to try to uplift their people. We need much more of that in Africa. There are examples of people who don't fall into what I'm saying. I was very pleasantly surprised when Monica Gengos, the former First Lady of Namibia, visited us at the African School of Governance in Kigali. And I was going to give her a copy of the book, and she smiled. I'm like, why is she smiling? She says, that was my husband's favorite book. Oh, the late Hage Geingob, the president of Namibia.
Yes.
I mean, I almost fell off my chair. You understand?
Yeah.
So there are African leaders who are doing the right thing and who are exposed to ideas, but many more need to. So the new world order that Trump has brought is a world order that has restored the world to what we call in international relations the anarchical society, which always was. But people were pretending that it wasn't, and they were talking about the international community. Yeah. There is no such thing, my friend. You know, that is an aspirational phrase, and it is a phrase that is used to lull African countries and developing countries into complacency. You think you're at the table, but actually you're on the menu. You know, so what we need to do is to, now that we are free from, or we are being freed by force from that dependence. Trump has not done it because he loves Africa. He's done it for his own political reasons back home. But Africans should now take the moment and redefine themselves, rethink their destiny, and tell themselves, we can do this. You know, and that's what is important about this new world order, that it creates a very big opportunity for Africa to develop and grow on its own terms.
Prof, don't forget, there's another big boy not too far away called China.
Yes, absolutely.
And a lot of African leaders also turned east.
Yeah.
What do we do then? I mean,
well, you see, I say that African leaders and Africans should stop behaving like abused spouses. You know, this one, you know, treated me badly. This other one says hello, so he or she loves me. You know, it doesn't work like that. Yeah. Africa should understand that China is neither its friend nor its enemy. China is seeking for China's interest. All the Western powers, whether it's China or whether it's America, they're looking for critical raw materials to fuel their own manufacturing growth and their economic growth. So what should Africans be doing with their own critical raw materials? It's in our soil, but we are poor. And the other people who don't have it are rich. How does that work? We should ask ourselves at ASG, we will be focusing heavily on the governance of natural resources. We will teach African countries how to negotiate deals in the global space with people who want their strategic minerals. First of all, the two things we must do with our minerals if we are to ever smell wealth, national wealth, first we must govern them well. We come back to governance. What is the governance? Setting up institutions that are transparent so that the income from those resources is obvious to everybody. Some of it can be saved in sovereign wealth funds. I've just come from Mozambique and huge natural gas finds. There's a plan now for what to do, or there is thinking about what to do over the next 5 years. So governance of natural resources is very important for Africa, because what happens now is that politicians or special interests corner these resources and siphon the profits. So many African countries are what we call gatekeeper states, because the natural resources is what is the gate. And all the politics is happening at the gate. The struggle for power is about who will man the gate, control the gate, and profit from the gate. But we must change that paradigm. The natural resources we have must become the basis of a social contract between African governments and their people. The second thing we must do is that we must add value to those resources. Do you know that a ton of bauxite, Guinea in West Africa, supplies about 60% of the world's bauxite. A ton of it that is in a raw form is $65. In the processed form, which is used for aluminium, which can do solar panels and all that, it's $2,500 a ton. Look at the difference in value. Meanwhile, the African Development Bank tells us that only 5% of Africa's minerals are being processed in the continent. So So these are the fundamental questions for Africa. Recently in Rwanda, we had the International Security Conference on Africa, ISCA, which is a new organization that I'm privileged to be on the board of directors, that has been set up to really think and collaborate and research and advise African countries on how to manage their security so that there can be stability in our continent. Yeah. And this whole question of critical raw materials is part of it. The whole question of private armies, mercenaries is part of it. There's so many things. Strategic thinking is very, very important for Africa. Yeah.
The other thing that's important for Africa, Prof, obviously we all know this, is security.
Yes.
Because the terror threats continue.
Absolutely.
Across the continent.
Across the continent.
From Al-Shabaab to Al-Qaeda. The threat is still there.
Terrorism is an unending war. It is in the human genome. I don't know why, but if you go through history, you will see that terrorists have always wreaked havoc. So the Austrian Archduke Ferdinand, when he was assassinated around 1910, or I can't remember when, but that's what started the First World War, an act of terrorism. So every country's obligation to itself and to its citizens is to be strong enough to withstand terrorism, to wipe it out. There was 9/11 in the United States, but has there been any other major attack?
No.
That's how you know a strong and competent state. There is no excuse. In many of our countries today, terrorists are controlling large swathes of territory. And these are what we call ungoverned spaces. It's governance failure, the inability to organize, which includes organizing your security. And why does this happen? Oftentimes, it's because the legitimacy of many African states is in question. And that's because the leaders are not leading. They're ruling, but they're not leading. There's a big difference.
Correct.
Yeah. They're in power for their own authority and for their own gratification, but they're not in power with a vision for the people. No. And there's no accountability to the people. And you have these democratic, so-called democratic systems. Every 4 years, there's some ritual called an election. But it does not deliver it does not deliver development. Even the democracy does not deliver, because in some countries the elections are rigged. There's a cabal that decides who gets what. So these are corruptions of ideas that we have borrowed, and we have not even practiced them properly.
Will they let us? Is a question I want to ask you after.
Who is they?
Let's say the West. Will they let us?
I don't.
Hold that thought, Prof. Hold that thought. And should we increasingly turn east? I mean, that's, and also for the ASG.
We should increasingly turn into ourselves.
ASG, Africa School of Governance, are you going to have guest lecturers and folks like that coming in and,
Absolutely. You can expect to see people like Uhuru Kenyatta. You can expect to see people like Olusegun Obasanjo. You can expect to see people like Ian Kama. You can expect to see people like Haile Mariam Desalegn. And quite a number of former leaders who, are interested in how to lend their experience to Africa's progress will be guest lecturers at ASG, and that's what's unique. ASG will become the address. You're going to have ASG. A network when you go to ASG.
Can you put me in that group, or maybe the group after that?
Yes.
Just come in and chat to the kids.
Why? I would love, especially about when we talk about African narratives.
Yes.
You are a media maestro, and you can talk about narratives. You can teach young people why it matters, how it is created, and how to create ours for our own progress.
Tell our own story.
Tell our own story.
I love it.
Jeff Korinange, the next visiting professor.
I'm coming.
Of media narrative.
Prof for a day?
We might do that.
Professor Kingsley. Mogali, folks, what a conversation. This is exactly what we need, especially coming into the weekend of Madaraka Day. What is the meaning of that? Internal self-governance, by the way. That's what Madaraka means. And that's what the Africa School of Governance is all about. Governance and the way forward and the next generation. What are your thoughts and comments? Bring them through at Koinange Jeff, at Citizen TV Kenya, the hashtag JKLive. JKLive takes a break. We'll be back in a moment.